everybody! Welcome to another daily plan stream. I'm your boss, Joe Boss. Alrighty, you guys. Bit of a choppy day today in the FX markets and in global equities. We'll go over a couple of the charts, see what's happened so far today. And then I have a new outlook that just hit my inbox. We'll be going over that. It's a quarterly FX outlook from Seth. A nice piece indeed. Let me know if you're here. Usually these streams are pretty small, so I usually am able to get to everybody. Let's dive right on into the charts, and wow. Eurodollar had a nice reversal here after this spike up. I don't know if you can actually see. Yeah. Bit of chop. But yeah, right off the bat, the bears had a good spot to take shots short. We tapped that spot 3 times today, huh? I was short somewhere around here, and on this pull, you know, I got chopped out of it. That sucks, but I'm sitting pretty in a different trade on USD CAD, which is actually the asset I have my best performance in. So I'm still doing fine. But when it comes down to Eurodollar here, yeah, nice spots to take shots on the short side. I said in the trade group I had pretty negative expectations going into today. And didn't I say yesterday, hey, time to be a little bit more cautious, watch out for all the hype around those headlines of, oh man, we need to sell the dollar all the way to Timbuktu. Well, now you're getting kind of a sideways-ish day. Now I still think that the most impactful price-wise moves are probably going to be coming around Thursday, Friday this week, because that's when we'll be getting more significant economic data coming to the forefront. But in the meantime, things should get pretty darn choppy. Even for stuff like New Zealand dollar. Man, wasn't that a nice spot to take a more aggressive shot on the short side. And then there was a spot for any bulls here. Yeah, good spots on the day. Good spots on the day. I did get out of this New Zealand dollar trade from yesterday that I was commenting on. The yield spreads were increasing, but I saw the change starting to occur over here, and I'm like, you know, let's step out. And between this trade and those chops on Eurodollar and what I got going on in USD CAD, overall, things are looking pretty good on my end. So I'm happy about that. You know, I'd be more happy if it's like hundreds and hundreds of pips in profit, but you know what? You take it one day at a time, right? Practicing what you preach, you know? And you can see the equity indices. We got a bunch of red here, except for Australia. Australia had this nice jump higher, but I don't know, man. That looks like something to immediately fade. Bit on the risky side, but you know what? That looks like a fadeable shot for people who are willing to do long short stuff on the day. The UK, a lot of these equity indices, by the way, we're gonna check out. A lot of them hit peaks on the low side for the day. Like here, the UK did. I don't think the Dow did. No, Dow going probably a bit lower. S&P, it did hit the peak, but it's not looking too hot. I'd be concerned once this thing starts moving past like 45.35. What's it look like on the week? Yeah, it looks like it's probably going into the 45.30s, like I pointed out in yesterday's stream. This is the Euro stocks. Let's check that out on the day. Yeah, it's probably hitting here. Let's circle that spot. Go back to the week. Yeah, if it does come down here, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a more bearish week. Again, you know, simple, cautious optimism, like I said in the last two streams. Germany's index looks fine on the week. On the day, oh, nice little spot for some people to take shots at. Doesn't seem like it's holding up. That is quite a negative trend. No good, no good. NQ hit that spot, went up, immediately came back down. We'll see if this area holds, but what is that? Probably past, like, I'd say the flat zone, the 15,900 would kind of be the spot to watch. You know, when I look at these distributions now, I'm hardly ever looking back in the history. It's always coincidental when I look back in history. I'm like, oh, look, there's this prior low, and we're gonna sweep that low. And I'm like, well, okay, you know, you do you. But I'm looking at how the distributions look right now. What are the odds of going to different spots right now? And yeah, I'd be on the more cautious side, definitely, with this sort of look here of potentially heading to the low 15,800s. I'll actually set up an alert at, what's that, 15,860. That'll be interesting to watch. Let's see, how's Japan moving? Japan is holding up. Japan does have a better outlook than most other countries at the moment. Hello, Fundin. Nice to see you in the chat, my man. I got a bit more energy today. Yesterday was a pretty chill stream. Didn't have too much to say. We didn't move a whole lot until later in the day yesterday. Yeah, let's look at some FX stuff. Looks like the dollar's holding up on its low, hit a likely top, pulled back a bit. Some more buy-ins come in. Let's check out the G7 dollar pairs. Again, decent spot for... A lot of these charts are going to look the same right now. Everything is heavily related to how dollar performance is moving at the moment. Just waiting for a bullish day. Well, we might have to wait a bit for the bullish day. I don't know, I think maybe sometime around December, like this, once we start to cross from November into December, we'll probably have a few more good bullish opportunities. But right now, things are pretty choppy. Aussie dollar holding up better than the New Zealand at the moment. Man, was that a decent shot on the short side or what? Good trough there too. Nice low probability spot to put a stop. Yeah. The dollar CAD. Yeah, I took my shot around here, so I'm sitting nice and pretty on that front. Yeah. Let's check out the closing odds here. So yeah, I'll go ahead and put an arrow here. This is an expectation for where I think we're gonna close on the day. So probably closer to the open. It'll probably still be a red day, but probably big bottom wick on the daily candle. Again, the yield spreads for the day look a bit more... yeah, they look a bit more constructive than they did yesterday, if I recall. No, I think I used different settings. I think I used 1, 2, 3. Yeah, the yield spreads are slightly improving. Nothing too significant. We'll have to see how those change over the next couple of days to see if this has any swing potential into some of these spots here in the month. Again, I had pretty bullish expectations for the week on USD CAD. So, yeah, it's in pretty bad spot in my opinion on the week, so we'll have to see how that develops for sure. Actually, I was looking at the probability pivot points for this one. Check that out. A good chunk of lows seasonally for USD CAD show up in this particular spot. So as a quick reminder, this indicator, range probabilities, takes in as much historical data as the chart will load and will tell you the probability distribution for finding your low for the week, the day, the month. And it'll give you the distribution of the high, the low, the close. This indicator here uses pivot points and seasonal data for where generally a low or a top or a close occurs between any two pivots, using seasonal data, so not all the data. So if seasonal expectations hold on this USD CAD, then yeah, maybe the low is somewhere around here between this S1 and S0.5. USD CAD hit the 148 spot I was talking about yesterday. We were trading around here. I'm like, I would not be surprised to see 148. And we hit that, and man, we did see a bump. You can see the yield spreads are improving. And today's yield spreads are nice and positive. So we'll have to see if that continues over the next couple of days before you see continuation, if that actually occurs. But yeah, today is a nice day for the dollar on the yen side of things, for dollar yen. And I thought this was interesting. You had this little moderate bump, moderate peak in the distribution for where lows occur on the day. And we tapped that at the same time we tapped the weekly spot. Pound. Oh yeah, let's not forget the pound. Yeah, nice spots for more aggressive bears to step in. I'm not too hot unless I have explicit expectations like, oh, I need to be short the pound to take shots in sort of this spot on the distribution. There's no significant trough like over here to place a stop. It's kind of like this thing could spike up real quick, get you stopped out right there, and the clusters are just a bit too densely packed for a super optimal stop. But yeah, on pound dollar, I would not be surprised to see what's that, 26 hit today. I would not be surprised to see 126 today. Let's check this out on the week. Well, yeah, that does look like a decent spot for weekly bearish shots, for sure. Would not be surprised to see lower lows. How does this look like on the daily spreads? It's still holding up there, but it's a bit on the mixed side. You can see where the bar is colored more white, so we don't have significant positive yields coming out of the UK compared to the US here, so not the best bullish look in the world. Net, the trend is still up though. So not all hope is lost. Cautiously optimistic and all that. All right. So just like that, there's all, I mean, well, we're only 20 minutes into the stream, and that's pretty much all the analysis to do on the chart for the day. All the trading I've wanted to do is pretty much already done. And hey, check that out. We're up like, we're back at the open here on the dollar CAD side of things. So good move for me. I just made up all my losses on the hits I took on this dip here. On the chop here in the euro dollar. Sweet. Nice little recovery for me. Nice little recovery for me. So now, with all the charting stuff and trading stuff done, let's see here, interesting things you found in outlooks this week. Yeah, no, we're about to actually do that. I'm going to pull up my monitor. And this is an outlook. The link to this is in the Discord. This is the FX pilot from Seb, and they used to do these every month, I think. They say that this is a quarterly report now, which, you know, I wish it was monthly. Because this is the one report out of Seb I really enjoy reading. Really enjoy reading. But look at the size of this thing. It's 56 pages. So quite a lot to go over in this. I'm not going to cover the whole thing. But I wanted to point out some of these charts. Specifically, Seb has this chart here. This is a stylized outlook for euro dollar. So this here, this line, is generally how euro dollar has moved so far. It's stylized, so, you know, it's not using exact price data. But quite easily you can see what Seb's expectations are for a soft landing and a hard landing, as far as how they anticipate it to impact the euro dollar prices. And then there's this chart here, which I found even more insightful. So this is G10FX scenario. So the description for this chart is shock scenarios applied to the 3-month and 5-year average of the factor sensitivity analysis, expected standard deviation move. So I'm assuming they have normalized all the prices and the whatnot. Those green bars are the expected deviation move that they have for a soft landing, and those red bars are the deviation moves they're expecting for a hard landing. And what I found particularly interesting is on the right-hand side here, you have yen in this little green box here saying can perform in soft and hard landing. And both the red and the green boxes are in positive territory here, which lines up with a lot of analysis from a lot of other institutions that have positive expectations for the yen going forward as they start to tighten their monetary policy. Also, yesterday I talked a bit about New Zealand potentially doing better than Australia. How in so many articles and headlines you're seeing, oh man, Australia is doing so well, and you hear very, very little about New Zealand. And if you were just looking at the charts today, right, if we go to the Aussie-New Zealand exchange rate, you can see Australia is still performing quite well against the New Zealand dollar. But in this scenario analysis here, you can actually see in a soft landing scenario, when you look at these green bars, New Zealand has slightly better expectations than Australia here during a soft landing. However, during a hard landing, New Zealand's expected to get hit a lot harder than Australia. So I'm not going to dive too into this particular outlook. It is 56 pages of analysis. But this is definitely something to read. This is definitely better quality material to be reading and going over on your own than, 99% of the stuff you'll read on Bloomberg. Besides, SEB and all these institutions get quoted by Bloomberg, like subjectively, depending on whatever type of story is being written about or peddled. Now let's real quick check out Financial Juice. Oh, so some news out of OPEC has moved oil. OPEC Plus talks are difficult. A further delay in the meeting is possible. Policy rollover is a possibility. Well, let's go ahead and check out oil. So that was on a 1 minute chart. So let's go to 1 minute. Let's see here. That was released at 5:16. So 5:16 was around here, and that's when the news popped off right here, right at 5. But that could just be market dynamics opening up. So, oh, but when you look at WTI is a totally different story. And actually, this is the WTI chart, not the crude. WTI and crude are not the same thing. But yeah, wow. Check that. And that's, 5:16, right when that bit of news came out. So that's not particularly great. There was a bit of commentary I read, or rather listened to, posted it in the commodities trading channel by Stan Key Research. That guy's great. He gives some awesome commodities analysis. He's got like 1,500 subscribers. He's a pro though. And he was talking about how there's been very, very few bits of research and analysis coming out of institutions like Reuters and Bloomberg on hints as to what's going on in the OPEC negotiations. And he speculated that they are not getting that gossip, essentially. Those journalists aren't getting gossip because the meetings are being held digitally, virtually, instead of at some central location. Because when they're held at a central location, all the journalists can just come and meet directly and talk before the meeting over the couple of days leading up to the meeting with the people who are making policy decisions and their aides. Hey, nice little, wow. Nice little move up there. Nice little 15-cent move on WTI there. We can bring up the daily range on this, see if it's at a decent spot or not. So it looks like that's a likely top before you start sliding into a more uniform range there in price. Reload the chart. Yeah. Would not be surprised if that is the low for the day, but given that news, I don't know, I think I've been seeing some research that was questioning demand for oil, but I'm not really up to snuff on oil demand metrics to be able to really commentate on that. So yeah, let's pull up Financial Juice again, see if there's anything else here. Bank of England, Haskell, food price shocks are more persistent than other ones. So some commentary from Haskell. Mossad and CIA directors are meeting Qatar's prime minister to build on the progress of truce negotiations. Alrighty. Yeah, there was a ceasefire, and apparently that ceasefire got extended between Hamas and Israel for another couple of days. And we can only hope that that ceasefire gets extended indefinite. And then I got my shop here. So if you want these indicators, you just go here. Sign up. There's a link in the description for 20% off for Black Friday and all that good stuff. Yeah. Well, now's the time where if you want me to check out a particular chart or commentate on anything in particular, now's the time to ask. Because this might be a pretty short and concise stream. Usually these things go on for about an hour, but you know what? As I get better and better at these things, you know, they might go on for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. XAU USD, the good old gold. Yeah, it's kind of in a funky spot. Bears who are particularly aggressive might have taken a shot there, but they might have been happy on these wicks when the price was actually down here, but seeing the price move up like that, yeah. It's not so fantastic. I wouldn't be surprised to see gold trade at 2020 in the 2020s range. Let's check it out for the week. Oh yeah, definitely would not be surprised to see gold trading this week in the 2020s range, for sure. Let's say 2023. Set up an alert for that. And let's bring up the seasonal data. And we only got 17 years of data, so let's see if we can get a bit more out of this. There we go. Wow. The seasonal data says most of the time you get your top this week somewhere between R2, R2.5, or this spot here. You don't frequently find your top this week around this area here. So yeah, I'd be cautious if you have expectations for seasonal factors to kick in more significantly. Yeah. And you can see that's a fairly uniform range here with range probabilities. So I'd say the cutoff would be 2030 once you start trading above 2030. It's probably gonna start... Oh, look, there's the top for... There's actually a peak right there for the month around this spot in the 2020s range. The high 2020s. That's interesting. Yeah, I would not be surprised to see the lower 2030s hit. Yeah, I would not be surprised. Yeah. Probably this area right here. I'll go ahead and leave a little circle around this spot as a point of interest, and we'll see if we trade around there sometime later this week if this strong bullish trend continues and brings us up into the low 2030s here on gold. See how quick and fast that was? Good tools. Decent tools. Yeah, that's right. It definitely would be R2 on the weekly pivot. That's what I see as well. Oh, yeah, not a problem. There's just a delay on the stream. But yeah, I think the cutoff before you start seeing those spots really is the... I'd say I'd be cautious of starting to trade in the upper 2030s range once we cross the upper 2020s. So maybe past this weekly R 1.5. I'll move this alert low to that spot right there. Call it 2026 as the threshold to potentially spiking that spot in the lower half of the 2030s range. That'd be quite a strong move on the commodity space, for sure. And if there's a particularly strong move in the OPEC side of things, if they continue to maintain their current rate of production, they don't announce any supply increases. From what I understand, Niger wants to start ramping up some of their supply. I'm not totally keen on it, but I did read it. Well, not read it. I did listen to that in commentary from the Stand Key video that I watched. So, yeah, no, I think that's pretty much everything for today. Let's check out how some of these FX pairs have moved in the last 30 or so minutes. Dollar CAD pulled back a tad there. Sucks a bit. But yeah, you can see still a bit more positive drift on that euro dollar there. So smart move of hopping out of that one. Still a bit more weakness here. More sideways action here out of the New Zealand. We'll have to see how Aussie holds up here, whether or not it hits that spot or not around, what's that, 66.5. Looking for pound dollar. There's pound yen. Oh, there it is. And yeah, probably a new higher high. Set alert in there. A higher high could bring us up to that spot right there on the week. What do our probabilities look like? Yeah, it's really not in favor of it seasonally. You don't come up here all that often. Over the last 21 years, you only come up here about 23-ish% of the time. They should cut to create spare capacity. It seems they are concerned with weak demand for oil. Yeah, that was generally my initial expectations going into the OPEC meeting as well, based off what I read. But if they do hold their current cuts and they give more hawkish expectations saying, hey, we're totally ready to continue cutting if we need to. I mean, get ready for $90 oil. There was a big B of A report, actually, that talked about that as the headline, $90 oil. Yeah, with war, I mean, the Russians, they're probably going to need it. But they got a bunch of excess and they're sending that off to China. Yeah, also the other thing is how much spare storage do they have for, especially the Russians. You know, they're still pumping along. I think they're cutting back a bit, but they still have fairly good production. From what I understand, the Russians still have a lot of their storage full. I wonder if the US is filling up their capacity or not, their storage in Oklahoma. Be interesting to see how that's doing. Hey, Richard, nice to see you in here. Yeah, lots of Russian Ural Hawks. Been heading to India too. Yeah, that's right. You know, some people are kind of like, what? Russia and India, they have relations? I remember BRICS has a blog, and it's most of the articles on this BRICS blog. It's like the official blog for the BRICS countries. It's mostly written articles in English from the Russian point of view. And it was several years ago that I read this, that the Russians actually would send their AK-47 production, all their latest AK assault rifle models, all their small arm models. They sent their production over to India, and they produced like tens of thousands of AKs. So the Russian AKs aren't even made in Russia. They're made in India. I bet a lot of them are still made in Russia. But a lot of AKs, a lot of Russian AKs are actually, I don't know if like the components are just made in India or if the whole weapon is built in India, but a lot of business between Russians and like people are sometimes very surprised about the amount of business that Russia and India actually have together. Yeah, Pakistan. Yeah. Well, the Afghanis really don't like the Russians. I don't know if you've been following that as far as Afghanistan has gone. One of the people I've been following for information around Afghanistan is actually Lord Miles, the crazy, not crazy, but the adventure tourist who went there during the fall of Kabul, and he was in, I think, Taliban custody for like 7-8 months, and then he did a bunch of interviews with a bunch of people, and I really enjoyed sharing and watching those interviews. Those are some. He's got some really great stories, and he's got a few more adventures on the way. Definitely interested in following what Lord Miles has coming up next as far as Afghanistan goes. But yeah, good stuff. Hey, new high. I wonder if Australia is still ticking along. Again, new 3-month high. Oh, check that out. Yeah, one way I would interpret this distribution, just the seasonal data here over the last 21 years with the probability pivot points. I'm going to set an alert at this R1.5 pivot for the week. Yeah, see how we have these zeros right here? So this just means over the last 21 years that we're given with this Aussie dollar data, there have been no highs between this R1.5 and R2.5 pivot. Most of the time, you're finding your tops below R1.5 this week, given the seasonal data. But I set an alert at this R1.5 because once you cross it, you're in this gap area. And I like to make an assumption that once you cross into this area, you are likely to go to the next highest probability zone, which is kind of this wide area, about 50 pips between R2.5, R3.5, which is call it 6678 and 6735. I wonder if that lines up with the ranges. Well, it kind of does. There is a peak here on the range in the gap zone, but there's also a peak here, right? And that's just past 66.7. So I'd be careful and watch this. Again, if only 21 years of data. I mean, we can load more than 21 years of data if we use FXCM. Yeah, you can see that didn't hold up, but that's a decent stop. Yeah, you can see the odds slightly increased there, but it's pretty flat between R2 and R3. Well, this is calling for a top right around there. So yeah, again, wouldn't be surprised to see the top in on Aussie dollar this week. But past, yeah, once you start going past like that 66.4 spot, 66.5, you're starting to deal with some risk of hitting 67. Yuri, oh, Well, I'm not familiar with the name, but if he said he's had a crazy life, I like listening to biographies, reading about interesting people, so I'll give that name a search. And yeah, you can see a more defined peak right there when we use the Oanda kind of truncated 21 years of data. Still the same peak right there, but yeah, probably would be on the more careful side with new highs on the Aussie side of things. Alrighty. I think that's pretty much everything I gotta say here. I'll go ahead and say thank you guys for hanging out in the chat, giving me some company, some interesting discussions today about Russia and Afghanistan. I mean, it'll be interesting to see the result of the OPEC meeting and if that moves oil prices, what we can infer, how that changes, what targets we might have for next week or next month. So I'll go ahead and end the stream here. So I'll go ahead and say thank you guys for watching another daily plan. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. If you're interested in the indicators or whatnot, you can always try them out for free. There's 10-day trials on all this stuff. And if you do decide to buy them, there's a 20% off Black Friday deal right now. Alrighty, you guys. I'll see you all in the Discord in a bit.